Hey guys, welcome to the Comics and Coffee podcast. We're your hosts, Moses Lopez and Ricardo Feliciano. This is Volume 1, Issue 2. So Ricardo, last time we spoke was about a week ago. How's your week been so far?
Pretty good. I'm happy we're doing issue 2, so I'm really excited about that. In other coffee-related news, I guess, since this is, and coffee, I launched a little side project, a little blog of mine called Siren Cafe. And basically, since I'm obsessed with Starbucks, this is a blog for Starbucks and coffee lovers.
Oh, nice.
Basically covering different things about Starbucks, the business, and baristas, and how their processes and new products, and then also, coffee-related things about difference between a light roast and a dark roast, and all random stuff like that. So if anybody is interested, you can find that at siren.cafe. And that's actually the URL. That's a real domain name, believe it or not. How about your week?
Working retail, my week has been pretty much the same thing. Pack some boxes, yell at some people.
Killed any customers this week?
No, not yet.
Not yet.
Not this week. No.
Not this week.
Surprisingly,
Good
they've been decent. But other than that, I did get offered a job at a hospital, which I don't think I'm gonna take because it's not really my cup of tea.
Yeah, hospitals are weird. I know a lot of people get grossed out by hospitals.
Yeah,
I don't get grossed out, but I do fear working there every day that I'm more likely to get sick, whether that's a true fear or not, but that's how it feels.
Yeah. Other than that, I'm excited for issue 2 and excited to see what Comics and Coffee holds for in the future.
Awesome. Let's dive into it. So we're going to start with our news segment. What news items do you have?
So one thing that I thought was really interesting is that Sony and Sony producer Amy Pascal are in the works for a Silk movie.
I'm not going to lie, I know nothing about Silk. What is that?
Silk is basically just a female Spider-Man in a way. She's
a female Spider-Man that's not Gwen Stacy?
Yeah, exactly. She's not Gwen Stacy, and there's also Spider-Woman, so there's like a few of them. But interesting enough, her character Cindy Moon was in Spider-Man Homecoming. She was part of the triathlon, I think. They're the group of nerds, basically, who went to... What a group of nerds. I'm going to stick with triathlon. And she was only in there for a brief cameo. She obviously had no powers, but they're in the works of a movie, and unfortunately that's all we're going to get for now, because they're not commenting on the matter.
That's interesting to me, because if you remember from the end of Homecoming, we get introduced to, I forget, first name Matt? Yeah, Gargan, Scorpion, right? The current rumors that I've been seeing around Homecoming 2 is that the villain's going to be Rey Mysterio, so...
Did you say Rey Mysterio?
Yeah, I did say Rey Mysterio, didn't I? Although, that would be interesting too.
That would be interesting.
We already have a wrestler in Guardians of the Galaxy, right?
Oh, we do, Batista.
Yeah, exactly. So, but no, not Rey Mysterio, but Mysterio.
It's Jake Gyllenhaal rumored to be playing.
Yeah, which that already excites me because I think he does great movies. He really gets into the roles. Do you think they're going to do something like the original Spider-Man trilogy where in the third movie there was more than one villain? So like the story is kind of interweaving between the two? Or is Scorpion just not going to be in that and that was just a brief cameo but not something happening in the next movie?
Well, I honestly didn't like how Spider-Man 3 had, what was it, 3 villains? Three villains?
3, yeah.
3.5 if you count New Goblin.
2. So that's 2.5 if you count New Goblin.
That's not what I said.
You said 3.5.
Oh, okay, sorry, 2.5. Because he was bad in the beginning, then he
got back and forth.
Yeah. I feel like it took away from giving us a proper Venom and a proper Sandman.
I disagree. I like that about the movie a lot. It made me feel the same way Infinity War made me feel, where I was always on the edge of my seat. That's why I go to these movies. I want to be like wowed and it full of action. Mind you, the Venom in Spider-Man 3 was horrible. I don't think that's the reason why. I remember, this is a long time ago, but I remember reading something about how, what's the director's name again?
Sam Raimi.
He didn't want to do Venom. I think he was pressured by someone at Sony because of the popularity of Venom to get him into the movie. From what I hear, that's kind of the reason why Venom turned out the way it was. Because it was somewhat rushed, his heart wasn't into it, because I was never really part of his plan. Sense. So I think that's more of the thing, and with obviously the new Venom movie coming out, hopefully Venom's much better. But yeah, I don't think it was executed well in any of the Avengers movies. You see, and they're not necessarily villains, I guess, but you see these big hero or villain, the people who have a lot of backstory, a lot of action powers, whatever, and they do a good job of interweaving them together. It's possible, but I don't know. I just feel like the end of the movie got me excited for Scorpion. And then we haven't heard anything about it since, so. Yeah. Although, and then also remember, I don't know if it's a Venom comic or a Spider-Man comic, but isn't there a storyline where Gargan becomes Venom?
Yes.
He becomes like a version of Venom, basically. Yeah. He gets the symbiote, so maybe they're, waiting for the timing since the Venom movie's coming out. Maybe that's something that could happen.
That's definitely a possibility. But I feel like with the rights to each character, whichever studio has them, I think maybe that's why we won't see that anytime soon. I believe Sony and Marvel just had the agreement to use Spider-Man, if I'm not mistaken, and not any other characters. But
so let me say something about that, and then it actually leads into one of my news items. In terms of the rights, the last thing that I've heard when it comes to Spider-Man, technically Sony retains the rights, like ultimately for Spider-Man. He's basically like on lease to Marvel Studios, where Marvel Studios gets to use him, which is the most important part. Okay. But also they get to write it, like write his lines, write the plot, then run it by Sony, just to kind of make sure that it's okay. Versus Sony actually being involved in writing for the character, for at least for the MCU movies. I'm sure for Venom, they're doing it completely. And if Spider-Man has a cameo in Venom, who we don't know yet, but if that was to happen,
I would love to.
If that was to happen, I would think Sony would just control that completely. I'm not even sure if Marvel Studios would even have any kind of say in that. So speaking of rights, something that I mentioned in issue 1 was Disney made a bid for 21st Century Fox in order to get all of the rights that they have for, X-Men, Fantastic Four, and all of that.
Deadpool.
Yeah, and Deadpool. They got outbid by Comcast. So last week I mentioned how Disney did a new bid. Turns out this week's news is that the Department of Justice, which originally filed, I don't know if it was a suit or whatever it's called, an injunction, something like that, which is kind of automatic in this kind of case because these are two huge companies that kind of make sure everything's going okay. That's not going to form a monopoly or antitrust thing or something like that. Okay. So they originally tried to block it. They now approved the merger.
Oh.
Doesn't mean it's final yet. There's still a lot more things that needs to happen. But the Department of Justice, which is basically representing the United States government, approved Disney purchasing 21st Century Fox. That's a really big step in this finally happening and us finally getting these characters. They only had one exception, which is very fair. They said that if Disney was to buy 21st Century Fox, they want them to divest Fox's sport networks. Basically, what that means is Fox owns Fox Sports, which is their main channel, but they own several other smaller sports channels for various different sports. Some of them in different languages and all that kind of stuff. Okay. Some of them are local stations around the country. Disney already has a big sports presence. Disney owns ABC, which owns a few things related to sports.
Oh, okay.
Most importantly, Disney owns ESPN. ESPN is probably one of the largest sports networks in the world, right?
Yeah.
And Disney owns that. So that's what the Department of Justice was worried about. They said they would approve it pending Disney not keep Fox's sport networks. So they have to sell them. Basically, the merger happens, and then they immediately have to go and sell those sport networks off so that Disney doesn't grow too much their sports empire, I guess. Okay. Which Disney said, okay. So Disney's okay with that. So far, so good. I'm freaking excited. We are so much closer. This definitely won't happen, I think, before this year's even over. But hopefully, if things go well, by 2019, next year, I think maybe things can start happening in terms of, I'm sure a full movie wouldn't be made in a year, but in terms of cameos and plans.
Or like maybe not a trailer, but like at least a script. Like
Yeah, I hear that there's already another X-Men movie in the works as well, so I don't know
Is it really?
What happens
Dark
with that.
Phoenix, I believe.
Because, that's coming from current 21st Century Fox. I'm not sure what changes with that, what happens with that, but that's something in the works. Cool, what else you got?
Oddly enough, Thor Ragnarok was ranked the gayest movie in the the gayest movie in the MCU, and not gay in a bad way, but only because the person who wrote the article was a homosexual. And the director, I can never pronounce his name.
The director of
Thor Ragnarok.
Yeah. Korg's voice.
Korg, just Korg.
Our buddy Korg. Yeah, you know what? No, we can't call him Korg. And then what if we want to refer to actual Korg?
Then we say actual Korg.
Okay. All right.
So Korg, he posted a picture of him in a fishnet shirt saying, I believe it was "Suck on that, Tony," or "Suck on that, Mr. Stark," referring because basically what the author was saying, which movies tickle their gay nerves, I guess, in a way, the most, and Thor Ragnarok was number one because of Chris Hemsworth without a shirt, Hulk without a shirt, Tessa Thompson, gorgeous woman, and yes. I just thought that it was funny that Korg didn't take it wrongly. He actually was celebrating it and was excited that it was ranked number one.
Speaking of that, and Tessa Thompson and Valkyrie, I believe you have another news item kind of like around this, so why don't you get into that?
So Kevin Feige confirms more LGBT characters for the future. And I know many fans want Captain America and Bucky to be in a relationship, but I am strongly against that, only because it's not in the comics, and that just seems ridiculous, because Cap is with Agent Carter's niece?
Yeah, which is something. That weird scenario there.
Bucky's with Falcon, they have their little bromance together. And Tessa Thompson.
No, Bucky and Falcon are Captain America's groupies.
That is true, yeah. And Tessa Thompson actually already wanted Valkyrie to be LGBT in the movies because that's what she is in the comic books.
And that's what I found interesting to me. So I agree with you. I don't want Captain America and Bucky to be together in that whole gay romance thing, only because it just doesn't make sense for the plot, especially for where the MCU already is. It's just that's not who their characters are. But it's not that necessarily that I'm against anything. So, for example, like you said with Valkyrie, Valkyrie was gay in the comics, or is gay in the comics, and she wasn't in the movie. And that is actually what I found kind of strange. I actually would have hoped that they would have continued to have her be gay in the movie, except for that would have been disappointing to me because, as you said, she's pretty hot. Yeah. So that would be unfortunate.
She definitely had the tough exterior.
Yeah.
Her and Thor kind of looked like they had something going on.
Thor and Hulk. One of my favorite lines of that movie is when he calls her angry girl. I love that the Hulk is the one calling her angry girl. And I know some people, I guess, get upset about these kind of things. I'm fine with it as long as that's how that character kind of already was.
Exactly. Like, one thing that kind of upsets me is that they never showed how Hawkeye was disabled. In the comic books, he's deaf. That he has to use sign language and he can read people's lips because he's hard of hearing. In the movies, he wasn't. So that was kind of a bummer.
To be fair, he's one of the few that don't have an origin movie, at least so far. Maybe if they did that, or if they ever do that, they can kind of go deeper into that. I guess it's too late now, though. I guess maybe if he does get a solo movie, he can become deaf.
Maybe.
So they can still kind of add that element in a different way. There's been plenty of talks of Black Widow, of her getting a solo movie, right? As we know, they have a lot of history together. They've worked together. Him and her can be in that movie, and then we can learn a little bit more about him. Maybe something happens to him.
One can only dream.
Yeah. So I have a news item that I was really excited about. Once again, this whole episode, by the way, is going to have a lot of spoilers. So if you guys don't already know that, stop listening now. But there's going to be spoilers for Luke Cage. There's going to be spoilers for Infinity War and a bunch of other things. So anyway, one of the things that people talked about for Infinity War is, half the universe dies.
Yeah.
So it's not just half the heroes or half the entire universe. People we didn't even see on screen, half of them died. Of the main heroes that you see in that last epic battle, a lot of people were upset because some of the deaths didn't quite make sense. For example, Black Panther dies and Spider-Man dies.
Who both have sequels approved.
Yeah, which, the whole Spider-Man thing still gets me a little emotional. But yeah, and they both have sequels coming up. So everyone's like, well, why are they dying if they have sequels? There's going to be someone new. And while that's definitely something to discuss, let's face it, at the end of the day, these are comic book movies.
Anything can literally happen.
Yeah, anything can happen. We know they're probably all going to come back. At least the ones that I got, quote unquote, dusted.
Yeah.
I'm not sure when it comes to Gamora or
Loki.
Or
Heimdall.
Yeah, I honestly don't know. I don't even have an opinion yet on whether they would come back or not. I feel like it's really hard to tell. But as far as the people who got dusted, they're likely going to come back. People were questioning if who died and who didn't had any significance. And Kevin
Feige.
Yeah, because I can't say his last name. He finally talked about it recently. I think it was on Twitter. I'm not sure where it was. Oh, no. It was to Gizmodo's IO9, if that's how you pronounce it. I'm not sure. Their publication. And he was talking to them about the characters that died. And he said that he's not going to go too much into any of the plot about what's going to happen, which character's going to come back or anything like that.
That makes sense. It's still pretty early.
Yeah, but one hint that he gave, which blew my mind, it honestly did not occur to me, was he says, everyone's paying attention to who died. And he said, don't pay attention to who died. He goes, what's important is to pay attention to who survived. If you look at that epic battle at the end of Infinity War, the people who survived are the original Avengers. So if you go all the way back to Avengers 1, the main cast of Avengers 1 survives the end of Infinity War.
I honestly didn't even notice that.
Exactly. So I mind you, half the universe is alive. So there's also other people as well. But it's the idea that to kind of close out phase 3 of the Marvel Cinematic Universe, the original Avengers are the ones that are alive, although Tony Stark is, far, far away from everybody else. So I don't know how he gets back or whatever, but it's going to be the original Avengers that are going to have to do what they do best and avenge because they lost. In Infinity War, they lost, Avengers 4, whatever they happen to name it, is going to be them doing what they do best and avenging the universe, not even just Earth this time. So they're not just Earth's mightiest heroes. At this point, they're going to be the universe's mightiest heroes. So it's the original cast, and I thought that was really, really cool and something, I've seen Infinity War 3 times now, and I did not realize that.
But speaking on that, there was also a picture on Facebook that surfaced of that scene in Civil War when all the 6 characters are at the table discussing the Sokovia Accords. The 3 on the right all dusted, and the 3 on the left did not. And then Tony's in the background, away from everyone, also meaning since he's on Titan, far away in space. Yeah. So I thought that was also pretty cool.
That's awesome.
Could it be foreshadowing or could it be just coincidence?
Yeah, exactly.
I have no idea.
for someone who's a big fan, and I love these movies so much, I feel like maybe sometimes we look too much into things. Mm-hmm. So yeah, that could easily be a coincidence, or it can be foreshadowing, and I wouldn't put it past them. You know, the whole, remember when Iron Man 2? The whole thing about Peter Parker being there as a little kid?
Oh, the little kid with the Iron Man helmet.
Yeah, even when they didn't have the rights to Spider-Man, they still threw that little nugget in there.
Yeah.
So I wouldn't put it past the MCU directors, producers, and all of that to have done that foreshadowing. Only they know, I guess.
Yeah.
What other news items do you have?
So, keeping the genre of Kevin Feige, I guess, he actually claims that there's going to be more female directors in the MCU. I'm not saying this idea was brought on by Wonder Woman being directed by Patty Jenkins, because Wonder Woman did phenomenal in the box office with fans, with critics. But out of all the 20 new Marvel movies that we're going to get, he claims that not all of them will have female directors, but a lot of them will. And I know Anna Boden, I don't know if I'm pronouncing that correctly, she's co-directing Captain Marvel. That will be the first MCU movie with a female director.
You know, we're going to get into Luke Cage in our next segment here, but many TV shows, at least nowadays especially, they're now, you know, they always have their main director, of course. They now have directors per episode. Well, they'll pick a director to do an episode or two. And I believe Luke Cage has multiple female directors that did a few of those episodes for season 2.
Oh, okay.
So they're definitely making a push there, which is, you know, great for everybody, and also gives different perspective, new opportunities for people. So that's pretty awesome. Looks like you have a lot of news items. Anything else you want to cover?
Oh, well, again, with Kevin Feige, he believes that the DCEU, you know, the DC's horrible extended universe, can learn from Richard Donner's Spider-Man movie.
The D's for DC, the C's for crap. So DC's crap extended universe.
Kevin Feige claims that is the best DC movie to date.
Wait, what movie?
Richard Donner's Spider-Man movie with Christopher Reeve as Spider-Man, I believe. The very first old ones.
And it's a DC movie?
Yeah.
Really?
Well, it's not DCEU, but he believes it's the best DC movie out there.
Oh.
I thought that was pretty interesting.
I haven't watched a lot of the recent DC movies because, honestly, they just don't look good to me. I'm not happy with their direction, but I did watch Wonder Woman, and Wonder Woman was amazing. So much better than Justice League, which I also watched. I think her character was very muted in Justice League versus in her movie where they just portrayed her like amazing.
Yeah.
But aside from that, and I think most people would agree, I think the Dark Knight trilogy was amazing. All three of those movies were good, and especially, of course, the middle one, Dark Knight itself, with the Joker. I don't think anything will ever top that. But otherwise, I don't think they've been coming out with a lot of good things. But I mean, we'll see. I hear all the time that the TV shows are really good. So
yeah, the animated shows are pretty decent.
Another news item I have. This is something we've actually already put out over social media on Facebook, Twitter, and all of that. James Gunn on his Twitter account tweeted a picture of him starting the screenplay for Guardians of the Galaxy 3. Ooh. That means, one, I was just excited, but one, he hasn't started it. Which, mind you, they say I don't think it's not coming out to 2020 anyway, so It isn't like we didn't know that already. So it's going to take a little while, but it just makes me a little sad because there's just more evidence that we're not going to get it soon.
It's so close yet so far.
Exactly, but it's really cool. It's really cool that it's starting, to know that it's starting, and just to him it's a nice little nugget there. Take a little picture of that and share that. I thought that's pretty cool. Cool. Any other news you want to share before we get to our main topic for this issue?
Okay, so one thing that I really found interesting was that in 2018, the 3 highest grossing films domestically are Marvel movies. Not necessarily MCU, but they rank as Black Panther, Infinity War, and Deadpool. With Black Panther hitting $699.6 million, Jeez. Infinity War $667.6, and Deadpool $300.3 million.
Wow. And you know that if you were to expand that list for just movies, Disney has, because Disney owns Marvel, Disney has their main like Pixar titles in there, and Star Wars.
Oh, okay.
So Disney itself, as a huge movie company, has a big chunk of that top list of movies.
And mind you, this is
the last couple years.
This is only domestic, and that doesn't include worldwide.
Yeah.
So that's a lot of money.
Awesome. All right, so in today's issue, we're going to cover 2 main topics. The first one's going to be about Luke Cage Season 2 review. Once again, spoilers. And then after that, we're going to be talking about Ant-Man and the Wasp. That's probably going to be a shorter segment, but just any kind of predictions, expectations that we might have for the movie, because by the time this comes out, we will be only a couple days away from the release of Ant-Man and the Wasp. So
yes.
By the time we record issue 3, the movie will be out already, and we'll do our review of the movie. Let's get started with Luke Cage Season 2. Let's get into that. I'm going to start because we've already briefly talked about Luke Cage in the last issue. One thing I really liked about season 1, I feel like they brought over to season 2, which was the music.
I definitely saw that in season 2, like how you mentioned they actually had people performing for the episodes. That I thought that was that.
Yeah,
nice
celebrities
touch.
Performing. Some of them aren't even necessarily celebrities that are quote, hot right now.
Yeah.
But celebrities going back into the early days of hip hop, which is really, really cool. And then because of the plot, because of the storyline of the whole Yardies and the Stylers is what were called. Once Bushmaster starts to kind of get up into the club, you start to hear a lot of Jamaican music, a lot of reggae, a little bit of dancehall. So
drums
that and I love that. So I don't know if you know. I think you might know a little bit about me, but I'm half Puerto Rican, not half, but I'm part Puerto Rican, part Jamaican, part Chinese.
Yeah, it blew my mind when I first.
Yeah, I know nothing about my Chinese heritage, but I'm very much involved in my Puerto Rican culture, my Jamaican culture, and a majority of the music that I listen to, if it's not like rap or hip hop, it's Caribbean music. So reggae, dancehall, calypso, all that kind of thing. So this perhaps was even better music for me, and I loved how the music flowed. And something that I didn't find out until I was already several episodes in, for a lot of these episodes for season 2 of Luke Cage, they chose a song to be the soundtrack of the episode based on title. So they looked at the titles of songs and said what would sound good for the storyline and kind of do that. And then that's what they named the episode after. So a lot of these episodes are named that way. And then they've even tweaked the plot slightly to kind of fit the tempo and the vibe of the song, which I thought was really, really cool. Probably a lot of extra work for them. Once again, I feel like that's just something that really makes this show very unique compared to the other Defenders, Punisher and Daredevil and all of that, or just shows in general. And once again, I think Netflix is just kicking ass here because Netflix is the one producing all of these, and they're just doing such an amazing job.
One thing I like with that one episode where Cockroach is beating on his girlfriend because he believes that she snitched to Luke Cage. And they have the music playing in the background, and then Luke Cage busts through, and the music is still playing. It adds an extra element to it that makes it seem more, that makes it more interesting and makes it just better to watch all around.
Yeah, and a little film element they do there is he likes to fight with his earphones on.
Oh, right.
And whenever he takes them off, the music kind of goes away or dies down.
Yeah.
And then when he puts them back on, the music goes up again. So it's almost like we're getting his experience of those fight scenes as well, which is pretty cool. I know I kind of don't want to skip to the ending already, but do you want to talk about the ending real quick?
Definitely.
Because I was not expecting that ending.
Yeah. At first I was a little confused when D-Dubs got mad, like, wait a second, why is he? And then he actually started explaining, okay, that makes more sense. So what the hell?
So do you want to just quickly give a brief summary of the ending? Or you want me to do that?
You could do that.
Okay,
you can probably explain it more better because I'm still a little confused.
Well, I'm confused as to a lot of the why, but I definitely know what happened.
Yeah.
And basically, so at the end of Luke Cage Season 2, Mariah finally gets arrested. She's in jail. And because she's not on the streets, she's not, we use quote unquote a lot in this episode.
How does she put it?
She's not running, running Harlem, protecting Harlem, however you want to see it. She's kind of out of the picture. Mm-hmm. And all these other gangs take that as an opportunity. It's a free-for-all.
Yeah, the Italians.
So it's a bunch of chaos. I think one episode said that crime went up by 73% or some crazy number like that.
I believe it was 73%, yeah.
Yeah, so there's a bunch of crime. All these bad things are happening, shootings, everything is happening in Harlem. And it's because Mariah is not there to protect, the streets. So Luke Cage is trying to figure out what to do. Remember this one part where this girl's telling him, that so-and-so got shot, this and that, you need to do something. He's like, I'm trying. So he decides to go talk to these gangs. He decides to go, he fights them off, Luke Cage doesn't really kill people, but he, fights them off and incapacitates them, and then goes to I think she's Puerto Rican?
The Puerto Rican, yeah.
Yeah, the Puerto Rican gang leader. I think she's Puerto Rican.
I'm not Spanish, sure. That's all I know.
Yeah, I know Shades is Puerto Rican, which is cool. Anyway, so he goes to her, and basically they broker a deal. He's telling her that he needs to stay out of his territory, that Harlem is his territory. Mm-hmm. And of course she tells him no, because why would she do that? She has this whole thing about how she's basically partnered with a lot of the Russians, so that if Luke Cage was to try to take her out, he would then have to deal with the Russians, and the Russians would come after him. So she's like, you ain't going to do anything to me.
And not just him, she said that she would have them shoot up schoolyards and parks, which I thought was pretty horrible.
Yeah, definitely horrible. But also, don't these people also have families and kids? Aren't their own people going to get hurt? But anyway, in order to stop the violence, he brokers a deal with her where he says you can't go above this street, you can't go below this street, basically boxing off Harlem as an area and saying that's his area. I won't mess with you if you do anything outside of the area. as long as you don't go into the area. For anybody who knows anything about like how gangs work, that's very how gangs work. They all have their territories, and a lot of the times they broker deals like that with each other. Where as long as you don't go into my territory, I won't go into your territory. We leave each other alone. So that was kind of the first sign there. And as the episode goes on, you realize that he's slowly becoming, and he says this too, the king of Harlem.
Yeah.
He says someone needs to run it, someone who's not the cops, because the cops aren't doing a good enough job. So he's going to become the king of Harlem. That's where things get a little scary, because he's sort of becoming his own crime boss.
Yeah.
Now, he's not killing people. He's not technically doing crime, so to speak.
But he's not doing things legally either.
Yeah, and he's becoming that figurehead, that crime boss that, you know, people like Kingpin was in Hell's Kitchen, right? The very end of the show kind of puts a stamp on Luke Cage is now a crime boss kind of thing, where Mariah in her will, because she dies in jail, gives him Harlem's Paradise.
Yeah.
So she gives him the club. Her concept is that club is basically the castle. Whoever's running Harlem has the club. She wants him to run Harlem. She knows he's going to run Harlem, so she gives him the club. And in like a weird evil villain kind of twist, she says that she knows, given time, it's going to corrupt him.
Okay.
She knows that Luke Cage isn't become corrupted. When you're powerful like that, when you're the boss, especially with the club, is going to get to his head, and he's going to basically become the next Cottonmouth, become the next Mariah Stokes. So it was not what I expected. And then the very last shot is of Luke Cage in that little glass thing up in the top where they overlook the club. And he looks very much like Cottonmouth did in season 1 and how Mariah did in season 2.
The only thing I think about that is with Cottonmouth and Mariah, they actually showed the crown above them. With Luke, they showed it a little bit off, which added tells me he's not exactly a crime boss yet, but eventually the crown will fit into place, if that makes any sense.
Maybe, yeah.
So I thought that was a little...
It was very shocking to me. I did not expect that ending, and it makes me wonder because I don't think, I guess, except for Loki in the movies, I don't think we've really seen a proper hero, become a bad guy in the MCU, right? The closest is the Punisher, but he wasn't really a proper hero in the first place.
Yeah,
and he's not a full villain either. He's just kind of off doing his own thing.
Yeah.
And that's who he is. You know, I don't think that's going to change, but Luke Cage was definitely the whole hero icon kind of person, and season 2 didn't end well for that.
Yeah.
If there's a season 3, because I haven't heard anything about it, he potentially can become like the new bad guy. And if Daredevil, if Daredevil comes back, because there is a season 3 in the works, and you know supposedly he's dead, but if he comes back, Hell's Kitchen is not far from Harlem. Maybe that's something he'll have to contend with now.
So speaking of the last episode, I know when they show Tilda walking into the club, she has that weird hairstyle. That hairstyle actually resembles her comic book character, Nightshade, where she's a villain. Now, they never mention her character Nightshade, but they do mention Nightshade being the plant that gives Bushmaster his powers and all that.
Yeah.
So who knows, if there is a season 3, maybe she'll come back as a villain. Because as you know, when the lawyer was reading Mariah's will, she seemed pissed off that
you can see her face,
that he got Harlem's Paradise and she only got the keyboard.
Yeah. Again, that's how Harlem's Paradise and her family works. It's her legacy. So I think even if she didn't like it at the beginning, especially with her mother gone, there definitely could be a plot thing where she's going to want to come back for her legacy. Just like Bushmaster said, that's in her family. She wasn't too fond of her mother, but her mother ran it. And before that, Cottonmouth ran it. As we see when she goes to the cemetery, she is a fan of Cottonmouth. She was really close to him. Maybe not necessarily for her mother, but maybe for Cottonmouth, she might want to reclaim Harlem's Paradise and keep the family legacy going.
Maybe just creating a legacy for herself, because she corrects everyone at the end. When they call her Stokes or Dillard, she says it's Johnson.
Well, again, this is the whole history repeating itself, because it's the same thing Mariah did with Dillard.
That is true.
The entire 2 seasons, she's correcting people to say she's Dillard because she wants to put away her past, right? And guess what happens?
The last few moments,
she ends up embracing it.
Yeah.
So I think that's also kind of a little bit of history repeating itself there, where she's correcting people saying Johnson, but I bet you anything she'll embrace the whole Stokes legacy soon enough in season 3. Speaking of Nightshade, did you notice the similarities between Nightshade and like the story about how it's grown from the ground, it's natural, it's only from Jamaica, and I forget what it's called, but what they use in Black Panther, that like bulb-like plant that turns you into the Black Panther, and how it's natural, grows from the ground, and you can only find it in Wakanda.
It definitely had some characteristics.
Yeah, at first I actually thought they were the same thing. Then I found out that they're not. but I noticed there's a lot of similarities there.
Yeah.
In terms of this natural thing, it's not something that comes from space per se. It's not like a freak experiment like Luke Cage. These are both natural kind of things that give people abilities. Although I guess the difference between Black Panther and Bushmaster is that Nightshade is temporary. Is that doesn't permanently change your body and then you just have these powers and that's it. It's something that kind of wears off and you kind of have to re-up on it.
Yeah.
If you want to keep those powers.
Now, speaking of Bushmaster, at the end of the season, we only see or hear that he goes to Jamaica to get more Nightshade.
Yeah.
Because he was weakened when he went into Harlem's Paradise trying to kill Mariah. The only problem with that is, do you think he'll be happy that someone else killed Mariah? Because the whole season, he wanted to be the one to kill her.
That's a good question. Here's my theory. I think yes, and here's why. In the last maybe 3-4 episodes, I started to wonder if maybe Bushmaster and Tilda might end up having a thing. Because, remember, at first she was a prisoner, he tried to burn them and all that kind of stuff, but as she starts to realize all the horror of her family, she kind of helps him out more and more, and it's to the point where, remember, she helps him get in the club. She didn't even have to do that. Yeah. She volunteered that last piece. She went to the point where she's gone out of her way to help him. And I have a feeling, complete theory, I have nothing to actually back this up, but I think maybe they'll start developing feelings for each other, or at least for right now, they definitely have mutual respect, I think.
Yeah, and they could do a partnership to take down Luke Cage.
Exactly. I think if they do start developing feelings, Bushmaster and Tilda can be the next Mariah and Shades, where he may not be happy that someone else killed Mariah, but if it's her, and they have a thing, it's like, okay, because she kind of did that for me, maybe. Because she killed her own mother, you know? Maybe there's that, and if he comes back and she's trying to get the club from Luke Cage, they team up. So her and him can be the next Shades and Mariah, possibly.
Okay, that's definitely a possibility.
I just really want to talk about one of my favorite lines from the show. I forget what episode it's at, but after Misty already has her arm, and they're getting ready to kind of team up and go F shit up, basically. I think Luke Cage makes the joke first about how you can be my sidekick. Yeah. And then she was like, no, you could be my sidekick or something like that, right?
She says, like, how do you know you're not my sidekick?
Yeah. And he goes, that's because this is my show. And maybe I'm looking too much into it. I thought it was hilarious because I know what he means. This is his plans. This is what his mission for Harlem is. So it's his show. But we're literally watching a show called Luke Cage. I found that really, really funny, and I definitely laughed.
He was like breaking the fourth wall without breaking the fourth wall in a way.
Exactly. He did a little Deadpool kind of thing there, which I thought was really cool. And then speaking of that, actually, I don't know if you have this as one of your items, so I'm not stealing your thunder here, but when they're at Rand's building and they're getting attacked by Bushmaster and his crew, the father's at one of he's not on the ledge, he's looking out the window maybe? I think he's looking. And he sees basically what's about to happen. He sees all these people pulling up in the cars. And he just goes, sweet Christmas. And then within seconds, the camera goes to Luke Cage. He's somewhere else, but he's also seeing what's happening. And he goes, sweet Christmas. I thought it was a nice little father-son moment there. So that was pretty cool.
Speaking of sweet Christmas, I love how when they first introduced Danny Rand into the season, and how him and Luke go to the warehouse where they're creating the Bushmaster drugs and all that. He actually had a sweet Christmas hoodie on.
Yeah, I forgot about that. I thought
that was hilarious that he went to the barbershop, he saw the hoodie, and was like, he paid D-dubbed for the hoodie, and he's wearing that to fight crime. I thought that was hilarious.
That's awesome. Whether you go back to how Danny Rand got his powers and the whole Asia thing, or even his business CEO, let me dress up nice look, that's definitely not his style. Yeah. But he's rocking around in a yellow hoodie that says Sweet Christmas. that was priceless. Like little things like that.
They call him the barefoot billionaire. Misty calls him that a few times.
I love when shows can do little things like that. To me, it makes me enjoy it a little bit more. I know you want to talk about Misty's arm.
So in the comic books, she does have the arm, which I thought was pretty cool that they mentioned that and actually gave her the arm. The only problem in the comics, she had powers with it in a way, not powers, but she had like repulsor blast when Tony Stark made it. And I believe when Danny Rand made it, she had like psychic abilities. I could be mistaken on this, but
wait, so Danny Rand also made it in the comics?
Yeah,
it wasn't just Tony Stark.
Yeah, it was both.
Okay.
The thing with Danny Rand's comic book arm, it gave her psychic powers, and I kind of got that vibe when she was trying to determine how a crime scene happened. Like,
have you finished season 1 yet?
Yes.
Because if you watch season 1, she has that in season 1.
Oh, okay.
I don't know if you would call it psychic. They never fully explain it, and they never describe it as a power.
Okay.
But she definitely has like intense moments of focus, where she kind of just can look at evidence, like pictures and all that, and kind of see herself in that scenario. She definitely has like a focus ability kind of thing, but I don't know if it's really just considered a power, or they're trying to show that she has something special about her that makes her a good detective. I'm not sure.
That makes more sense. And plus, with shows like this and the movies, you have to keep things a little bit realistic, even though it is a comic book movie or show, which that also relates to when Luke Cage asked Danny if did he really punch a dragon or just someone named Dragon. And it's funny that he says you're bulletproof, this and that, and you can't accept the fact that dragons are real. So I just think that even though some things have to be realistic, some things don't. So he actually did punch a dragon and stuff like that.
If you want to talk about partnerships real quick, throughout the season, there's this a moment where Luke Cage and Misty team up. Mind you, they kind of sort of team up the whole season, really. Yeah. But like in terms of actually fighting, which I thought was really cool. And then there's also another moment where, as you mentioned earlier, where him and Danny team up and they're fighting people. But what I did not expect, Luke Cage and Bushmaster, the villain of the series, of the show, of the season, sorry. The villain of the season, they team up and they fight. Not only was it unexpected, I love the way they fought together. It was amazing in how Bushmaster actually ends up hitting him during the fight, which is that
I actually had to replay it a few times to see if it was on purpose or if he just missed one of the goons and just hit him by accident.
I thought that was really cool, and it's definitely one of those moments where it's just like with the Punisher and Daredevil. I like those little team ups. I hope to see more of it, and it's just I don't know. It was really nice to see them together and with the music in those scenes as well. Really greatly filmed.
I thought how it was cool when Luke Cage says we're doing it my way and means no killing. And Bushmaster actually agreed with it just so we can help clear his name, that he wasn't the one selling the drugs and everything.
Yeah.
So he's not entirely a bad guy.
Actually, speaking of similarities between Nightshade and what they use in Black Panther, I think we have another kind of similarity here in terms of villain storylines here between Killmonger and Bushmaster. Definitely. Because they're definitely both villains. I mean, at the end of the day, we can agree they both kill people senselessly.
Yeah.
Like, that's a villain.
Killmonger choked an old woman.
That's a villain. Like, that's not right. However, they both have...
strong messages.
Yes, like, even if they're not legally justified in doing what they do, they have good reasons for it.
Exactly.
Good reasons for it. And notice both of those reasons stem back to family. It's something about family and their family, or they're part of the family getting destroyed, killed, whatever you want to call it, that kind of leads to this. So there's definitely like a parallel between Black Panther and Luke Cage in that sense as well. One thing that's kind of sad, and I wonder what's going to happen now for season 3, if there's a season 3 of Luke Cage, is that Reginald E. Cathy, I think his name is, that's the actor who played Luke Cage's father. The old guy with the swag, basically.
The preacher.
And we see at the end of season 2 that they have a little message for him. So he died. And if you notice in the last 2 episodes, I think it was, he's not even in those episodes. Yeah. Mind you, maybe just for plot reasons. Yeah. He couldn't.
He just left Harlem for safety or whatever.
But also it could be that he didn't even have a chance to finish filming his role for those last couple of episodes. But unfortunately, he passed away during the filming, I guess, of Luke Cage season 2. So what do you think is gonna happen? Like, how do they explain that? I mean, they can replace him. It's not like the MCU hasn't done that before. They replaced Rhodey. They replaced Rhodey. They replaced Bruce Banner. And they didn't even explain it either. Yeah, for either one, they just replaced the actor and just kept going. So that they can definitely do that. Personally, I feel like how Reginald played the father was very memorable to me.
It definitely was.
So I don't think it would be easy to replace him. So I wonder if they just don't talk about it at all. And like his father, it really isn't mentioned much for season 3, or if they just kill him off.
Well, I know with season 2, there was a whole theme about family. So maybe that could be why he was such a big part of season 2. In season 3, they might not need him as much. So maybe they'll just refer to flashbacks or just mention him by name.
They can't do flashbacks if he's dead. Remember, for flashbacks, you have to film it still.
Well, even with season 2, they had flashbacks of showing the father and the mom in prison. So stuff like that. Stuff that's already been filmed.
Yeah, but I don't think there's any flashbacks that are already filmed for now for season 3, is what I'm saying.
Yeah.
But one thing I will say, if there's a season 3, if they try to redeem him for season 3, maybe they don't mention him at the beginning, and maybe halfway through season 3, you hear about how this whole gangster thing and him running Harlem, maybe one of the other gangs kills his father, and we don't get to see it, but they kill his father, and then that's when he realizes what this whole life is doing to him, and maybe that's how he redeems himself and kind of gets away from that in season 3.
That's also definitely a possibility.
Yeah. So we're running low on time. So anything else you want to talk about for Luke Cage before we get to our next topic?
There's nothing more than that. It's a great series. I'm definitely going to finish watching season 1. And if you haven't checked it out, I strongly urge that you do.
Yeah, they're both really, really great shows. Really, really like it. All right. Our second topic for this issue is going to be Ant-Man and the Wasp predictions and expectations. I feel like you're going to have a lot more to talk about for this than me. So I'm going to just go first and kind of get myself out the way. So I'm really excited. I saw Ant-Man late. I never saw Ant-Man in theaters. I actually saw it with my girlfriend maybe a year or more after it already came out. We saw it together because she's already seen it, and it was hilarious. And I was actually upset with myself of why I never saw it in theaters because of that. So because of that, I'm very excited for this movie. I
don't remember when I saw it. I just remember seeing it. I don't know if it was just like on bootleg or on Showbox, but I definitely know it wasn't in theaters.
You're from the Bronx, right? So it's probably bootleg.
That's probably the guy on the corner selling them for. No, the Asian ladies who go into McDonald's
exactly
and say movies, DVDs.
Exactly. So
if you're from New York, you'll get that. Or I'm assuming they're everywhere too.
Yeah. Well, I don't know. I'm trying to remember. I used to live in Florida. I don't remember bootlegs being out there. At least not like the DVD bootlegs. The online bootlegs are different downloads.
Yeah.
I honestly don't know too much about Ant-Man from the comics, and I've only seen the movie a few times. But one thing I did read is people were asking about storyline placement for this movie, where in the timeline that it happens. So one thing that was confirmed is that Ant-Man and the Wasp takes place before Infinity War. So while we watch this movie, it's going to be before Thanos comes to Earth, all this stuff happens, so the world won't be falling apart just yet. But one thing that makes me think about is the MCU is famous for their post-credit scenes. So I'm wondering if Ant-Man and the Wasp will end with the events of Infinity War starting. Like, as the movie's ending, he sees the news, and something's happening. For example, when, what's his name? The guy who starts off Infinity War. He brings that big circle thing, the spaceship, into Manhattan. Like how Infinity War starts.
Kolob Obsidian and Ebony Moss. Those two.
Yeah, so maybe he sees that on the news at the end of this movie, and that's how it kind of leads into it, or maybe they do it as a post-credit scene.
They could do that.
I'm not sure.
They probably just doing where they show Hope Van Dyne dusting away, or Hank Pym dusting away, or somebody dusting away that eventually gets him involved in the fight.
Yeah, because I was about to say, so they also confirmed that Ant-Man will be in Avengers 4.
Awesome.
So definitely this movie is going to be before Infinity War, but he will also be in Avengers 4. So maybe they have some bridge for that. We'll see. But what do you have?
One thing I thought was actually pretty interesting. They mentioned Goliath in the trailer, who is also known as Bill Foster. In the comic books, he's actually married to Claire Temple, who we know is in the Three Brother shows. That can possibly lead up to a team up or a cameo from them saying, this is my ex-wife. She now deals with superheroes in New York or something like that. Like a funny little side joke or something.
I would love to see them reference the Street Brawlers in the movies, because the Street Brawlers have referenced the movies. They've talked about Captain America. They talked about the big green monster.
I was just going to say, yeah.
So they've made references, because they're all in the same universe, even though we don't see those characters. So they have made references to the movie characters. Vice versa, I don't think any of the movies have made any references to the Street Brawler characters, which is kind of unfortunate. I've always thought they would do something at least with Daredevil, because out of all the Street Brawlers, Daredevil's the only one that's very much a superhero kind of person, down to the whole suit.
Yeah.
He's the only one that has a superhero suit, because Jessica Jones is just her.
Yeah.
Luke Cage is just him. Frank Castle has his little, his skull thing, but he's just kind of him.
Mass murders.
Yeah. Which, by the way, I can't wait for season 2 of that. I'm so looking forward to that. But yeah, so that'll be a pretty interesting crossover, like Easter egg down to the show, so hopefully they do that.
And in the comics, he has a nephew that takes up the mantle of Goliath. So hopefully they'll mention Thomas Foster. Maybe not as a full character, but I have my nephew Thomas, blah, 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 or whatever the case may be. That can also make way for seeing Goliath actually in action, because he's played by Lawrence Fishburne, I believe. And he's pretty old now, so I don't think they're going to show him fighting anyone. So maybe in the future, they'll have someone dressed as Goliath.
Do you think with the whole shrinking so that you can go in between the whole molecules thing, do you think that they're going to find the guy's wife,
Hank's wife,
in this movie?
Hopefully they will, because they do show a scene in the trailer where they're in the subparticle dimension, I believe it's called.
Because that's where his wife was trapped or lost or whatever.
And Michelle Pfeiffer is actually cast as Hank's wife. So it can either be for a flashback or her coming back.
It's a good. I didn't know that. Okay, well we'll see soon enough. I feel like that that lends itself to her possibly being found. Did you watch Stranger Things?
Yeah.
So Barb, they find her body, I think, right? Eventually they find her body, but she's dead. So it could also be the whole, they do find her, but maybe she's not alive kind of thing. They can do a Stranger Things.
That'll be heartbreaking.
Yeah, but I mean, the MCU, this is not sound mean, but the MCU already has enough characters, so.
Yeah, they do, but what's one more? So one thing I found extremely hilarious is, the scene in the trailer where the building shrinks down and he pulls out the luggage thing?
Uh-huh.
Are all the equipment bolted to the ground? Because if not, he's moving around with that. Everything's just going to be completely messed up once he enlarges it back. And I just thought that was interesting that I doubt they'll mention that, but it's just something that I find hilarious.
I feel like it'd be one of those things where they just won't go into the physics of it just so that they don't have to explain it and kind of keep the story going.
There was someone in there, like a maintenance man that gets struck down.
I believe another thing I think you see from one of the trailers, because if you remember from Civil War, when he goes giant to kind of do that fight at the airport, he says he's never done it before, that he hopes that he doesn't rip in half, right?
Yeah.
And I believe we see in the trailers for the second movie, he gets bigger, right?
Significantly bigger.
Yeah. I forget. I don't know if there's a specific name for that, but he goes like huge.
In the comic books, that's just considered Giant Man, which is another. There's Ant-Man and then Giant Man, same person but just different heroes in a way. Yeah. So I don't know if they'll mention the name Giant Man, but I think that'd be pretty cool.
Yeah, and in terms of vibe, I definitely think that we're gonna go kind of back to the original Ant-Man and that vibe in Thor Ragnarok, where it's a very light, funny movie, and I think it's going to be a break from all the horror that's happened in Infinity War and all the stress and anxiety from that movie. Yeah. I feel like Ant-Man's supposed to be our little break.
Or it could just mean that Marvel is just cushioning the blow for Avengers 4. Which kind of scares me as well.
Yeah.
Like, here's a cupcake before your death sentence or something like that.
Yeah. Although we still have Captain Marvel afterwards, so it's this movie, then Captain Marvel, then Avengers 4, which we still don't have the title for, still.
It's Infinity War Part 2. Sticking with that title.
Yeah, and actually, I didn't have this as a news item, but something we should mention real quick, because it happened this week. Did you hear that Tom Holland leaked the title for the next Homecoming movie?
Home, I think it was.
Yeah. So, the question is, what does that mean? I say that because he's in space, right? So I know many people are saying that that's what the title's about, the fact that he's in space.
Oh, okay.
But I know that when I was reading about filming of the movie, they're filming in all these different cities, including London. Clearly, he's not going to be in space for long.
Yeah.
So I don't know if Far From Home refers to him being in space or just him not being in New York, because he's traveling, the country, well, not really the country, but the world, in all these different places. And also, what the hell is he doing in London? But I guess also, it just means that regardless of what happens in Avengers 4, he comes back. Maybe he comes back from space.
Definitely.
Yeah, so that happened in the past week. We forgot to talk about that. Anything else you want to talk about Ant-Man and the Wasp, or any predictions before this episode goes out?
Based on the trailer, it looks like that they're all on the run. Hank Pym and Hope Van Dyne, they're surrounded by soldiers having guns pointed at them. Why do you think they're on the run? Do you think I honestly can't tell if it's because they helped Scott after Civil War, after Captain America broke him out. Because in the beginning of the trailer, they show him under house arrest. Mm-hmm. So if they caught him for escaping the prison, I believe it was called the Raft, why not just put him back?
I think there's two possibilities. And one of them is that I think he escapes. I think why they don't put him back is the same thing with Hawkeye, which is part of what they mentioned in Infinity War about why they weren't there. It's because they both have families.
Yeah.
He's a hero, but he's not at the same level as the Avengers.
Yeah.
So he doesn't worldly dangerous, I guess. You know what I mean? And he has a family, he has a daughter he's worried about, so maybe they have some empathy with him there. And that's why they put him in house arrest. So he's still kind of in trouble. Oh. But they allow him to try to be, have a relationship with his daughter. The rest of them don't have family.
Yeah.
So that could be why, but also related to the first movie, maybe it's still about the technology. Maybe people are after him because of that technology. The military wants it, that other company wants it, and they're just trying to get it back to use it for their own purposes.
Okay.
So there's that. I feel like Marvel's been doing more and more cameos. Do you want to make any prediction of who, not from Ant-Man, might make a cameo in this movie? Just like how Danny Rand made a cameo in Luke Cage? No?
I honestly can't think of any.
I don't know. I feel like I wouldn't be surprised if Falcon or something like that made an appearance.
In the first one.
They started a relationship there.
Yeah.
So I wouldn't be surprised if Falcon or Hawkeye, since we haven't seen Hawkeye.
Oh,
and
okay.
I don't know when they filmed this, but fans been wanting to see him. They were upset that he wasn't going to be in Infinity War even before Infinity War came out, because he was missing from all of the promotional materials, So maybe if they were filming this while the promotional materials were coming out and they heard about Hawkeye not being there and people were upset, maybe they gave him a little cameo in here as well. The whole the family man kind of thing.
Yeah.
I would say maybe Hawkeye or Falcon, and they're both birds. So maybe one of those make a cameo.
Hawkeye and Ant-Man having kind of a relationship when he shot him from the arrow, which is also mimicking that famous comic book cover. So maybe he could appear in Ant-Man.
We'll see. I'm excited. And I guess so we're seeing it on the 5th, right? Yeah. So we're seeing it July 5th at night, and that's about a week from now, I guess, right?
Exactly a week from now.
So, actually, yeah, now that I think about it, that's when we record, right? Interesting. I guess we should delay our recording. And so
record Friday morning or something.
Yeah, so our next episode, which will be Volume 1, Issue 3, we'll be covering Ant-Man and the Wasp. It will be our review of what happens in the movie and what we thought about it.
If any of our predictions came true or if we just look stupid.
Exactly. I'm not gonna lie. If my predictions come true about that cameo, I'm gonna be so freaking excited. Cool. All right, everybody. We are gonna head out. Don't forget, if you have any questions or feedback, you can contact us on Twitter at comics_the letter N and the word coffee. On Facebook at facebook.com/comicsandcoffee or our website comicsandcoffee.com. Thank you for listening.
Have a good night, guys.
Piss off, ghost!